Good day. We are One News and welcome to Agenda. Sitting in for Cito Beltran, I'm Regina Lay. Let's start off this program with a boost through our daily starter. From scientist and Nobel Prize winner, the late Marie Curie, nothing in life is to be feared, it is only to be understood. Now let's take a look at some of the headlines on the front page of the Philippine Star. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, is calling for calm in the Taiwan Straits. In a rare statement, ministers representing the 10-nation group said they are concerned that the situation could destabilize the region and lead to unpredictable consequences. Former presidential spokesperson Harry Roque speaks out on the issue of the Philippines deciding not to rejoin the International Criminal Court, or ICC. Roque said, no country would ever agree to surrender their exclusive right to prosecute crimes that happened in their jurisdiction. Infectious diseases expert Dr. Ronjin Solante says a surge in COVID cases in the next 2 weeks is possible as the highly transmissible Omicron subvariant called Centaurus was recently detected in the country. We're also looking at a photo of Trade Department Chief Alfredo Pascual, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Governor Felipe Medalla, and Maya's executives, including Chairman Emeritus Manny V. Pangilinan, as they join forces to boost digital transformation among businesses. And 24-year-old Sebastian Esai Eco Iviota joins the centuries-old Pontifical Swiss Guard of the Vatican. He is only the second Swiss Guard of Filipino descent. And it's all systems go for the start of the school year and face-to-face classes on August 22nd, just about a little over 2 weeks away now. Big question on a lot of parents' mind, how can we ensure the safety of students amid the rising number of COVID cases? We have with us to discuss this a member of the Health Department's advisory group. But first, let's get to know her in this video.
Dr. Ong-Lim is part of the Health Department's Technical Advisory Group. She specializes on pediatric infectious diseases. Aside from this, Ong-Lim is the Assistant Secretary of the Pediatric Infectious Disease Society of the Philippines.
All right, and with that, let me bring in Dr. Anna Ong-Lim, again, DOH member of the DOH Technical Advisory Group. Dr. Anna, good morning. Thanks for joining us today. I was just reading a piece of news about the possible surge in COVID cases in about 2 weeks' time. This is, of course, brought on by the highly transmissible Centaurus subvariant. And it could dovetail sakto in timing with the fact that face-to-face classes are about to resume. And so the big question at this point is, how do we ensure the safety of our students, right, amid the rising number of COVID-19 cases, especially as Education Secretary Sara Duterte has already said, it will push through?
So that's the news is of course always concerning, no? Whenever we pick up a new variant, I'm sure people will be reassured to know that it's taken very seriously and preparations are always made and there's a review, no, of processes. However, syempre for something as big as school opening, I'm also sure that the education sector would like some kind of stability na para masabihan sila earlier on, ano ba, tuloy ba o hindi. So with the current direction na itutuloy, very important nga to make sure that we are able to institute measures to safeguard the health of kids and the teaching staff, no, and the support staff. And of course, very important yung assessment of whether people are vaccinated or not. And really, this is coming from the perspective that if you're vaccinated, you don't have to give protection as second thought, in the sense na you know that your body already has the defense against infection. But of course, this has to be supplemented with all of the minimum public health standards, which we all did naman when we started going back to our workplaces.
Right. Doc Anna, I wonder if you could give us a little bit more detail, if you could elaborate on some of these precautionary measures that the DOH has already undertaken to make sure that, children are protected.
Well, there's a joint memorandum circular that was prepared initially last year to guide the pilot implementation, and there's another update that was released in February, if I'm not mistaken. And it outlines very basic measures that we're all very familiar with. I think the challenge really is to remind people that these are not just measures that are meant for specific situations, but also will apply for school, no?
Yeah.
Kasi ang problema natin, I guess, is sa tagal na rin naman ng pandemic, nakadalawang taon na tayo dito, yung reminders that we issue, medyo we take it for granted eh. But in fact, totoo na malaking tulong siya. So as an example, for schools no abroad which have continued to operate, ano ba ang mga ginawa nila that ensured limitation of transmission for the learners or for the students? They found out that actually implementation of masking was a big factor. And in fact, currently, iniisip nga kung kailangan bang i-mandate sa schools, in the US in particular, yung pagsusuot ng mask.
Actually, in some countries, they don't even mandate the kids to wear masks. Parang they've, lifted all possible restrictions. There's no plastic barriers within amongst the chairs. Kids don't wear masks. Wala na talaga. Parang they're like, okay, well, we have to learn to live with it.
Yes, but again, no, and you're right to point that out, no, Regina. But again, based on studies that they themselves have also conducted, they picked up that for masks in particular, this was quite a helpful intervention to prevent transmission no, across students. The other thing that they were able to demonstrate and which we can learn from is to review ventilation standards and make sure that these are set no, properly so that we can also take advantage of ventilation as a way to prevent transmission.
Doc Anna, there's this whole debate going on about whether or not it's necessary to segregate the vaccinated from the unvaccinated. That pertains to kids, pati na rin yung teachers and other school personnel. What's your take on it?
Well, I think, Regina, we consider what we do also in the workplace as kind of like a model, di ba? Sa atin naman na mga nagtatrabaho, pumapasok sa mga opisina or workplaces, we don't ask, ikaw ba vaccinated ka? Tapos kung vaccinated ka, huwag kang lipat ka sa ibang opisina. Hindi naman
Actually,
tayo
that's
ganon,
illegal,
diba?
yes.
Yes, so and also it's very disruptive also in terms of workflow, relationships and all that, no? But what do we do to make sure that we and they, no, actually mas sila kaysa tayo are protected? Kasi sino ba ang mas at risk yung hindi vaccinated actually rather than tayo na vaccinated. So ano ba ginagawa natin? And this is the same interventions for the schools. Kailangan we avoid anything that will tag us as a close contact should any of us in the workplace have been detected as positive. And so what makes us a close contact? Not being in a mask, being together over a close distance, being in an area that's enclosed without good ventilation, and being together for more than 15 minutes. So, paano natin i-applyan kayo sa school setting? Medyo mahirap, di ba? Kasi, syempre, magkakasama tayo for a long time. And then, medyo crowded yung area kasi may mga settings talaga, may mga schools na mahihirapang i-implement yung physical distancing. Pero siguro to the extent possible, review ng school administrators kung hanggang saan nila kayang i-distance without compromising school attendance. And then also, yung kaya talagang gawin ngayon pa lang na paghandaan ng maayos yung ventilation. Kasi there are so many things that can be done. Baka hindi lang naiisip ng administrators or ng school community that they can still implement this.
Right. Doc, when you say ventilation, do you mean opening the windows or kailangan ba to do we need high-tech equipment like air purifiers?
So the goal is actually to try to ensure that your carbon dioxide levels within the space should be less than 1,000, and as close to 400 or so, which is the quality of outdoor air. Now, the easiest way to achieve this is really to just open the windows and doors and make sure that air is flowing,
Mm.
and assist that by using something that we all have, electric fans, no? Pero syempre pagka marami ng tao sa isang room, maaaring mas tumataas yung levels ng CO2, and that's something that school authorities should simulate even before they admit the students para makasiguro tayo na maayos yung quality.
Right. And then just to clarify as well, the less CO2 there is within an enclosed room, the less the chances of spreading COVID. Tama po ba?
That's right. And also other respiratory infections, no? So
Mm.
it's actually a good, what would you put this? A good practice, no? Na nagmamask tayo at ini-ensure natin na magandang ventilation kasi aside from COVID, what might spread? You have all of these cough and cold illnesses, flu, you have these rash illnesses that all typically spread via the airborne route, no? Aerosolized particles. And by making sure ventilation is in place, this will help prevent all these other infections.
Right. Doc, another somewhat touchy subject, second booster shots for minors. I mean, already I know a lot of parents who decided not to vaccinate their kids, right? Preferring to let natural immunity fight it out. But what's your take on fully vaccinating children as young as 5, and also booster shots for them?
The current recommendations state that everyone from 5 years old onwards will qualify for the primary series, and those who are aged 12 onwards qualify for at least the first booster. Now, only those who are 18 and above will qualify for a second booster, and this is only in the setting where they have immunocompromising conditions. So for the school-going population, ang ina-encourage is, syempre, una, dapat fully vaccinated with 2 doses, and for 12 and up, dapat may first booster. So yun lang naman ang current status. Now, as to vaccinating, no, I think we've already seen the benefit of being vaccinated, where people who have been vaccinated have a significantly decreased chance of getting severe and critical disease and lower the risk of death. So I think this is something that parents should be thinking about very carefully, lalo na ngayon that their kids are going to go back to a setting where there's a risk of exposure, not just from people at home, but now from other people in a bigger community.
Right, that's absolutely true. And also, in fact, the DepEd has already issued a memo pala to say that classes will follow a non-discriminatory policy for all personnel and students, coming back to what we were just talking about earlier. Now, Doc, I want to move on from one viral infection to another, monkeypox. Of course, we all know that it's a lot less transmissible than COVID-19 coronavirus. It's not airborne. There's quite a fair bit that we know at this point. However, that hasn't stopped people from worrying, of course, right? In fact, just last week, I myself got a memo from my daughter's kindergarten. It was a long laundry list of precautions to take to avoid monkeypox infection. But again, what's your take on this emerging disease, and what should parents who are about to send their children into face-to-face classes do about it?
The difference between monkeypox and COVID is really the way that it's transmitted. And although there is a component of respiratory transmission, the main mode is close skin-to-skin contact. Now, we are blessed that this is typically also, or this disease is typically also accompanied by some signs and symptoms like fever, and body aches and pains. And so we expect that somebody who might still just be developing monkeypox will probably be more cautious about their movements because they're not feeling well, no? So siguro, the possibility of getting monkeypox maybe in a school setting is quite remote. and I would say significantly less compared to getting COVID. Kaya sinasabi naman natin that the transmission precautions that we have in place for COVID will be helpful for monkeypox, because if we're trying to avoid skin-to-skin contact, then the physical distancing will be helpful and the hand washing will be helpful. And then putting on masks, as I said, will protect against a variety of infections, including the respiratory transmission component of this virus.
So it isn't time to hit the panic button just yet.
Well, I think no, the what we've learned in the past 2 years is panic is counterproductive.
Mm,
We have a lot of measures in place that are going to help us deal with these situations. And I think the point that I would personally like to communicate is, let's not get confused about the essentials. Kasi, siyempre, pagbalik ng school at parang ang dami mong kailangang intindihin. As you mentioned, you
yeah,
had this whole laundry list to worry about. But you know, the essential question to answer is, how do I avoid getting tagged as a close contact? And if you can outline the steps to that, which are very simple, di ba? Number one, make sure that you're always masked in all encounters. Number two, to the extent possible, physical distancing. Number three, it's the responsibility of the school community to ensure that ventilation is optimized. And number four, since we can't do anything about the time of interaction, then let's try to be creative, no, around those ways. Maybe the schools can think about shorter periods, longer breaks, and so on and so forth, no? And of course, putting that together with vaccination prevents you from being tagged as a close contact. And so all of the steps moving forward from that, you don't have to do it, di ba? Kasi hindi ka nga close contact.
right. Actually, it might be a good point at this time, Doc Anna, if you could talk us through what the DOH is doing. I'm sure you guys have a lot of tasks and meetings talking about this emerging monkeypox disease. What the DOH is doing as far as curbing it, and contact tracing.
The contact tracing efforts naman are similar to what is usually in place for other notifiable infectious diseases. So typically, the point of entry is a healthcare facility, a healthcare professional giving a report to either the regional or the national office that's in charge of receiving the information for notifiable disease. And there's a coordination to try to determine whether this is a probable or a definite case. No? And then from there, there's an effort to collect samples and then send this to laboratories that are capable of validating the specimen. And then while the index case or the source case is advised to limit their movements so they don't spread the infection around. So this is a general process that is typical, valid, no, for any kind of infectious disease. So for monkeypox, siguro ang pinagkaiba is kailangan ma-inform yung public kasi kakaiba siya di ba? Hindi natin masyadong kilala. So we need to inform the public na, itong mga ganitong klaseng simptomas, you have to be more vigilant, you have to be more aware, you need to seek consult para ma-trigger yung buong chain of responses kasi syempre nagsisimula naman talaga yan sa atin bilang pasyente.
Right, right. But like you said, we have learned a lot from dealing with 2 years of COVID-19. So hopefully, the public also does their part. We're going to have to leave it there. Dr. Anna Ong-Lim, member of the DOH Technical Advisory Group. Thank you so much for your time and insights this morning.
Thank you.
We will pause for a short break. Agenda will be right back after a quick message. Keep it here on One News, all sides, all the time. Welcome back to Agenda. I'm Regina Lay, sitting in for Cito Beltran. And so the big question again, how are teachers preparing for the school year's opening coming up in just a little over 2 weeks? Taking off from our discussion with Dr. Ong-Lim, we have our next guest now to discuss this. Let's get to know him in this video.
Raymond Basilio is the Secretary General of Alliance of Concerned Teachers, Philippines. He previously served as the National Campaign Officer of the organization. Basilio was also a community organizer for the Lumads in Bukidnon and Misamis Oriental.
And with that, let me bring in Raymond Basilio, again, Secretary General of the Alliance of Concerned Teachers, or ACTs. Raymond, thanks for joining us this morning. You heard my conversation with Doc Anna Ong-Lim earlier. What do you think? Do you think most of the schools in the country nationwide are now ready for the opening of face-to-face classes?
Good morning, Regina, and good morning to our televiewers. And right now, our schools are conducting the Brigada Escuela. It's a national donation drive, a volunteer drive for our schools. No, I've been to different areas recently, and the major problem that we are seeing right now is on the matter of the readiness of our schools in terms of health facilities, classrooms that are yet to be renovated or to be fixed. No. We've been closed for 2 years, and many of our facilities are actually not that okay. So that's why in one of our campaigns right now is to we're calling for the Congress to allocate additional funds for our schools, so that the renovation of facilities be taken care of immediately. Second, we are not letting go of our call for the provision of a health worker for our schools to ensure that the health needs of our teachers and students are addressed.
Raymond, talk us through some of the things you saw. Sabi mo, you went around some of these schools. What were some of the problems? What were some of the things that they're doing right? Pero ano yung mga kulang that you're seeing?
Major problem po talaga ay since 2 years na nakasara yung mga schools natin, marami talagang dilapidated classrooms. Tingin namin ito yung kailangang immediately dapat ma-address ng ating current na pamunuan ng Department of Education. There are even schools na wala pa ring hand-washing facilities na sapat para sa mga mag-aaral. A question of even having functional comfort rooms sa maraming mga eskwelahan din natin. Kaya talagang importante ma-address ito ng Department of Education. Our teachers are ready to serve and to teach our students. In fact, we're very excited for that because it's better to teach face-to-face than to teach remotely. And nakita na natin yung problema ng ating mga students over the past 2 years. Kaya talagang it's not only about opening our schools. It's about making sure that our facilities are actually working.
Actually, the Department of Education is asking for 848 billion pesos for their 2022 budget, right? But medyo binabaan to hindi na-approve ng DBM, binabaan pa nga. Talk us through what the implications of that will be. Ano yung problem if we don't get enough budget to restore these dilapidated schools?
Ang isang nakikita na namin, I've been receiving reports na may mga LGUs na nagrereklamo na sa kanila inaasa yung pondo para sa needs ng mga schools. Tama ito, problema talaga ito kasi hindi lahat ng LGUs may capacity to assist the needs of the schools. Lalong-lalo na sa mga probinsya na maliliit yung income ng ating local government units. Sasabihin ng mga LGUs, ano bang unahin namin? Yung ayuda, yung tulong sa karaniwang mamayan namin, or we put premium dun sa pag-spend para sa capital outlay o na needs ng mga schools. Kaya problema po ito. Tapos dadagdag pa natin yung usapin dito. May mga expenses yung Department of Education na beyond doon sa normal na na presyo, no? Like the procurement of laptop computers, no? Kaya talagang sinasabi sa amin ng mga donors, nagsosolicit kayo ng mga needs ninyo pero you bought laptops at the price of 58,000 to 60,000 pesos each, no? So talagang yun yung mga kwentuhan ngayon.
Actually, I was gonna ask you about those laptops. Ano ba talaga yung what's the real deal behind it? Kasi 'di ba the Commission on Audit flagged DepEd for buying these expensive, pero bakit daw entry level laptops lang to, and they're also transacted through PSDBM, which as we know was caught up in the whole Pharmaly scandal during the COVID-19 last 2 years of COVID-19, right? So how should we view this?
Una, masakit sa dibdib namin ito, no? Kasi we've been calling for the provision of laptop computers for teachers since the onset of pandemic, no? Kasi ito yung gamit para sa pagtuturo. Hindi nakatanggap ang mga teachers natin. Maraming hindi nakatanggap ng laptop computers at yung mga nakatanggap ay nagrereklamo na hindi nila ito nagagamit kasi nga daw as they open na applications, nagahang lang ito, no? Hindi kaya ng processor ng laptop computers na natanggap nung iilan, no? And then, syempre, mabigat sa amin kasi nangutang ang karamihan sa mga teachers, no, nag-apply ng loan sa GSIS para makaprocure ng sariling laptop computer na medyo high-end, na kaya yung Zoom classes, yung online classes, kaya yung multi-functions na ginagawa, no, nagmagawa ng videos or gumagawa ng iba't ibang learning instructional materials, no. Tapos marinig natin yung isang tawag natin ito, napaka low-end, no, na laptop computers ay binili at the price ng isang MacBook computer, no? So talagang disappointing.
Itong mga teachers who had to borrow just to buy laptops, na-reimburse ba sila or nabigyan ng subsidies?
Kahit po piso, no, wala pong natanggap yung ating mga teachers to reimburse them for their expenses, no, sa pagbili po ng laptop computers. Kaya talaga pong mainit po yung ground ngayon nung nakita yung ulat ng Commission on Audit.
And so because of that, Raymond, are you guys in favor? Is your group still in favor of blended learning? Kasi of course we know that it's been mandated na kailangan na mag face-to-face classes. But for areas na who, still somehow can't make it to the classrooms, or like you said, sira-sira pa yung classrooms, do we still need to do or consider the option of blended learning?
Isang bagay po kasi dito, no, before pa po pumasok si Vice President Sara, no, we've been calling for the conduct of face-to-face classes, no, kasi alam mo, Regina, nakita na namin yung epekto, no, 2 years wala sa classrooms yung mga bata, and we've been encountering problems ng mga bata na hindi marunong magsulat, magbasa, and hanggang high school yan, hanggang high school, no, ganyan yung problema. Hindi na namin nakikita na pahabain pa yung remote learning natin kasi talagang napakalaki na maging epekto nito sa edukasyon nating kabataan and eventually sa ekonomiya natin, no. Would you believe that during the pilot run of the face-to-face classes early this year, nakita natin na may problema talaga kasi nung first grading, second grading, yung grades ng mga bata that's 94, 95, 96, pero during the pilot run, na-shock yung mga teachers natin because when they are going to rate the students, ang lumalabas yung grades ng mga bata 74, 75, 76, so napakalaki nung difference, no. So sabi namin hindi natin maaari isulat yung markang to kasi how do we explain yung napakalaking gap, no, between the grades from the first and second quarter and to their third and fourth quarter grades, no. So sabi namin parang malaki yung kakaharapin natin na problema by August 2022. While talaga pong napakalaki naman ng problema natin sa facilities. So sasabihin nyo parang napakagulo ng aming posisyon, pero our position is to push the government to address the needs now, no. Hindi magiging solusyon yung pag-aatras pa ng face-to-face para maganda kasi hindi nga natin nagawa for the past 2 years. Dapat ginawa natin yung pag-retrofit ng facilities natin while the children are not there, no.
Yes, absolutely.
Hindi natin ginawa. So there's no point of stopping us from calling for the implementation of face-to-face kasi Pwedeng gawin yan ngayon. Pwedeng ginagawa yan habang andun yung mga bata pa unti-unti sa ating mga schools, no. Again, binanggit ni Doktora kanina, no. Natuwa ko doon kasi sa buong mundo, tayo lang naman yung hindi nagbukas ng eskwelahan over the past 2 years. And we should have learned from the experiences of many countries around us.
Right. Raymond, that's very shocking, the story that you're telling us na yung grades biglang ang laki ng difference from pre-pandemic to biglang to recently, right? Ano to? Is it a nationwide thing or nakita nyo lang in one specific area?
Well, this was the result of the focus group discussion that we conducted nationally. So, hindi lang ito nangyari sa isang school, no? This was affirmed by all participants of the discussions that we conducted across all levels, across all areas of the country.
So across the board talaga may drop in learning and educational skills sa mga bata because of the inability to go to school.
Yes, at actually sabi namin ang good thing na lang sa nangyari sa over the past 2 years ay natuto yung mga parents, no. Sila.
Oo nga, kami natuto sa bahay how to teach our children. Raymond, yung sinasabi ni Doc Anna Ong-Lim earlier about making sure there's proper ventilation in the classrooms. Number one, opening the windows and the doors, because the goal is making sure that the level of CO2, carbon dioxide, is low, because that's been proven to, lessen the transmission of virus. Nagagawa ba ito ng mga classrooms, you think? Especially yung part na some of them, I understand, won't be able to afford air purifiers, right? But basic things like that.
But kaya po kami, we advocate that we control the number of students inside the classroom, no? Hindi po kami pumapayag dun sa statement na kung ano yung mechanisms natin before the pandemic ay yun pa rin yung gagawin natin ngayon, no? In particular, dapat malimit natin at the maximum of 35 students in a class, lalong-lalo sa NCR, no, na maliliit yung classrooms natin sa NCR, no. Bakit siya maliliit? Kasi alam mo naman, no, nagkaroon tayo ng classroom crisis dito sa Manila. Yung solution na ginawa ay lagyan ng barrier sa gitna, no, yung isang classroom para maging dalawa ito. So talagang lumiit yung space ng ating mga classroom. So hindi pwede na lumampas pa tayo ng 35 na maximum na talaga ito upang kahit papaano ay ma-control natin, no, yung physical distancing, at the same time makita natin na may ventilation pa rin, no. Isang question talaga dyan, yung basic na sinasabi ni Doktora, yung electric fans. Kaya sabi nga namin, ayan na yung mga teachers natin, mangongolekta na ng donasyon para pambili ng electric fans. Sana hindi na po. Sana po i-provide na po ito ng gobyerno. Matiyak na bawat classrooms natin ay may working electric fans.
If you limit students per classroom ratio to 35, ano gagawin sa excess, diba? So kailangan we would have to build new classrooms, right? Which brings us back to the budget issue.
Yes po, kasi dapat po talaga every year we construct additional classrooms kasi lumalaki po yung population natin, no? Pero ayun na nga, isang problema din over the past 2 years, no? Not a single classroom was constructed, no? That's the problem. Kaya talagang lumalabas ngayon yung option ng having a shifting of classes, no? Kasi public schools cannot deny enrollment of students, no? Kaya talagang kailangan mo tanggapin lahat 'yan. Ngayon, para isang suggestion na binubuo namin ngayon, kasi hindi ka naman makakonstruct ng classroom in a month, no? So isang suggestion namin ay mag-implement ng shifting of classes, no? One session in the morning, one session in the afternoon. Matagal na itong ginagawa sa Manila, so we might as well have this in the regions para makuan lang natin, no, makontrol natin yung bilang ng estudyante sa isang class.
Right. One last question, Raymond, no, actually it's a two-part question. Number one, ano yung updates from the damage to the schools during the earthquake 2 weeks ago or last week, sorry, especially in northern Luzon? Anong kailangan gawin ng DepEd to help out the damaged schools? And number two, let's pretend na Education Secretary and VP Sara Duterte is listening. What is the one thing that you want to ask of her?
Wala, una-una, no, doon sa mga schools na tinamaan ng lindol, no. there are around 300 or more schools affected by this, no? Dapat mabilisan na po yung renovation saka yung pag-check dun sa quality or dun sa status and safety ng mga schools natin around those areas, ano? In preparation for our August 22 class opening. Actually, Regina, hindi lang dapat yung mga tinamaan ng lindol tinitingnan natin na schools, no? I've been to Bicol last week and I was informed that those schools damaged by the typhoon over last year ay till now hindi pa po renovated. And actually, I saw several schools along the way. So kailangan po talaga itong tignan ng ating pamahalaan. Sinasabi po ng mga school administrators, they were not given funds for the renovation of the schools. So dapat po i-attend na po ito agad ng gobyerno. So what's our message for Vice President Sara Duterte? No? Una-una, we support the conduct of face-to-face classes. Second, we call the Vice President to make use of her office to push the Congress to pass the supplemental budget for the education sector so that we can fast-track the construction and renovation of facilities. Second, this is our request for the teachers. No? Let's hire school health personnel. No? Tama na yung practice natin na yung teacher lalagay natin sa clinic at i-declare natin na clinic teacher, no? We're not trained to attend health needs of our students and we don't have the capacity for that, no? So nagmamakaawa kami dito, no? Mag-hire na tayo ng mga nurses. Napakarami nating nurses sa bansa. Ilagay natin sila sa mga eskwelahan upang maging matagumpay yung ating pagbubukas ng klase.
I certainly hope she's listening. We're going to have to leave it there. Raymond Basilio, thank you so much for your time. He is the Secretary General of the Alliance of Concerned Teachers. We're going to pause for another very quick break and keep it here on One News Agenda. We'll be back after just a quick message. Welcome back to Agenda. I'm Regina Lay, sitting in for Cito Beltran. President Bongbong Marcos has urged local government units to get into more public-private partnerships or PPPs to finance their projects. I've got a very special guest to discuss just this with me, but first, let's get to know him in this video.
Michael Rama currently serves as mayor of Cebu City, a position he also held from 2010 to 2016. Prior to this, he has also served as the city's vice mayor. Rama was also recently elected as national president of the League of Cities of the Philippines.
Good morning, Mayor Mike.
Good morning.
Thank you for being with us today. Let's get right into it. President Marcos has already said LGUs need to lead the transformation of the country, quote unquote, from the bottom up by engaging more PPPs. What is your reaction to this? Are you, especially considering the fact that we in the previous administration had moved away from PPPs?
We've already had that regime in the city of Cebu. when I was the mayor, we commenced it in 2000, somewhere 2012 or 13. And now we have the third bridge. You have seen the third bridge? That is actually
Yes.
from PPP when I was the Regional Development Council chairman. And so many projects that we had in mind and at that time, and that is only among the many. And we thank the group of Manny Velez Pangilinan in bringing his trust, in particular in the city of Cebu. That is one. And if you talk about
Mayor, you're talking
Yes.
about the Cebu Cordova Link Expressway, correct? Which was funded by
yes,
the
that is the beautiful.
Metro Pacific.
It already been there. It's already been there as a concept. Now, being the president, we will be having our 16, 17, 18 in city. And that PPP, that will be part also of our discussion. And I'm already putting up the so-called programs. And I wish all 146 members of the League of Cities of the Philippines, likewise, even their vice mayor or congressman, so with their, I call it MWF, mayors work first, their mayors workforce will be also a part so that we will be able to have a continuing education regime, best practices, and keynote speakers that our mayors, component and highly urbanized, will be able to have. And our governor, Gwen Garcia, will also be a part of the keynote speakers who will bring matters about local autonomy, including devolution, centralization, decentralization. There will be topic in that direction.
Mayor, what are some of these other projects that you've got in the pipeline? Talk us through some of them.
If you're talking about, we have the monorail. Sayang, hindi nalagay yung video ko dyan. We have the LRT, subways, we even have a cable car, and super beautiful terminal. And right now, we have a PPP with carbon development by Mega Wide. And Mega Wide definitely have already been putting up, and we're receiving 50 million as the signing was being done on the curative MOA, which is supplemental. That's another one. You go to our South Road properties, you can see all those buildings which I've been a part with Mayor Tammy Osmeña before. We entered and we were the signatory of a joint venture. All this thing about joint venture, unsolicited proposal, Cebu City with Ayala, SM, Gokhan with MVP, and even the Phil Invest, Nestor Sitenco Group and Company. We have lined up all of this, Regine, because we are going to bring Cebu City, Singapore-like.
That's a great ambition, Mayor.
Yes. You've got to imagine, you've got to aim high. Because if you only come to think about being mediocre, I mean, there is no more use. Our president, Bongbong Marcos, I can see a visionary from a father who built before, with a son who was a governor, a senator, and a congressman. Now at the helm, and the vice president of Sara Duterte, and then the Senate president of Big Subiri, and an experienced congressman, Martin Romualdez. Wow, we are in the right track, and I am very sure we will practically soar high as a country, Regine.
Right. Mayor, all these projects that you talked about, your monorail, your new terminals, and so on and so forth, these are all PPPs?
I would wish it should be towards that direction. Why not? And definitely, because if you're going to think, yung third bridge, it was purely a local undertaking. And in other words, we have our own joint venture agreement on a joint venture ordinance. Then plus, we are being equipped in the local government code. In the meantime, ngumusta ako sa mga kasamahan kong mayors. We have the 7160 that brings all this mandate that we can enter into the PPP. And we don't even need anymore if a certain amount being required need us intervention.
Right.
All the way with Al-Agra, who have been an expert on this PPP or other mode of bringing project to a local government unit region, we would be able to do it. In fact, dam is a water concern we have. I present this matter about water concern even to the MVP Group and Company. It will be under PPP. And all of this, I would like to bring to the attention of the national government. We in the local government units, and me as president of the local cities of the Philippines, we will have a continuing education on this matter.
Right.
That everybody, even how far
Of the LCP, League of Cities of the Philippines, which is composed of 146 LGUs.
ka
Who
maririnig.
prefer
Go ahead,
who
go ahead.
prefer Mayor, I was asking you, you are also the president of LCP, the League of Cities of the Philippines, which is composed of about 146 LGUs. Lahat ba masaya that we are shifting back to PPPs?
You know, if you're talking about, it's all about capacity building po. It's really, kasi mayroon akong palaging sinasabi dito sa Cebu City, binisaya, no? Ang Bulawan, naara sa imong tugkaran. And if you're talking about, go back to history, barangayan, bayanihan, voluntarismo. Tatlong B yan, hindi yung bung-bung-bung. Tatlong B yan. Barangayan, bayanihan, voluntarismo. Yung strength ng isang local government unit nasa tao. Yung strength ng isang barangay nasa tao pa rin. So nandun lahat. Doon mismo sa barangay, nandyan yung mga POs, nandyan yung sinasabi nating NGOs, nandyan yung Chamber of Commerce, nandyan yung simbahan, nandyan yung mga developers. All of them are just in that area. So itong sinasabing PPP, kayang-kaya to, Regine, kayang-kaya. Basta i-equip na natin yung mga mayors of the understanding, especially of the novelty of PPP. Saka, if we're talking about Cebu, that is what we will be showing to them when they will be around. Yung, sabihin natin yung third bridge, sabihin natin yung advent ng we call the North Star of the Gokhan Way. It's a joint venture. Yung aming mga property dyan na we had it before with SM, it's a joint venture. Then another one with the Philinvest, it's a joint venture. For some of the properties, we also directly sell it. And then we're going to come up with another one. Waste to energy is a joint venture by Expedition. So, as I said earlier, yung mismong carbon development corridor, it's a joint venture. So, joint venture or anything like BOT, PPP, build, operate, transfer, they've been nandyan na yan, noon pa yan. Pinag-uusapan na yan, Regine, 99.
Right. Mayor, also, of course, when we talk about infrastructure, hindi lang to roads, airports, seaports, right? There's other industries to invest in. What is Cebu City open, not city, pero yung Cebu, the whole province open to or welcoming?
Actually, if you look at Cebu, it's a culture, historical, heritage, tourism, service. The whole Cebu offers MICE. You know what is MICE? From the point of tourism, meeting, investment, tapos
conventions,
convention, exhibits. You try to look at it in a nutshell, it definitely will bring the GDP more or less be improving, the so-called per capita will be improving, and one Cebu City, once the whole Cebu, one Cebu Island, and we have a very dynamic leader in one Cebu Island, that's our governor, Governor Will Garcia, and all of us, Tri-Cities, and then the rest of the municipalities working as one, then we will be able to come up beautifully with the new Secretary of Tourism, Cristina Prasco, and all those that she has been picking up. And I am very proud. Those people that she had picked up as undersecretary, I have worked with them too. I have worked with them, and they are all achievers, passionate. And definitely, Regine, when you talk about what we can offer, or in this whole administration of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., is we will be supporting instead yung iba minsan hingi ng hingi. Kami naman, we will do everything we can, pero yung mga malalaki na talaga hindi namin kaya, sana papasok sila. Kagaya ngayon, for the past days, we have been hit by unexpected load of downpour, Regine. And that is, for me, very alarming. It is not a joke. I've been telling that long time ago when I was still a councilor, a vice mayor, then mayor, now back as mayor. We cannot afford. We are supposed to be the stewards. We are supposed to be the leaders. And then if you don't show a political will, we will be counting dead people in due time.
Sorry, Mayor, anong damage to the recent spate of downpours, and what kind of help are you asking for specifically?
Actually, when you talk about help, ito nga ako in my rented house. I'm renting a house, Regine, and it is beside the river. The other night, I was awakened by my wife, Malo, because outside the water that was coming up on the road was flowing down to where we are. Good enough that it's a lower thing, so water seeks its own level, but it hits my garage, which I converted into a living room for my son, MJ. So I'm looking at it that we've got to bring TPWH, no nonsense, really addressing the area of our river. Number two, we've got to have the DNR, no nonsense. Kasi mayroong mga projects sa DNR, nakikita ko dito, instead of magwa-widen ng river, na-constricted yung river, Regine. Na-constricted. And never mind, we will be introducing some, shall we say, mitigating intervention thereat. Number four, we're talking about the National Housing Authority. Today, I will have what I call a Zoom with all the developers, be it local or national, because we need more medium-rise building. Because when we go into addressing the coastal, addressing the rivers and the creek, which is being unimaginably occupied by informal settlers. Right now, I have to ask the permission of the Secretary, Sara Duterte, and our Superintendent, Ria Angtut, in Cebu, that all schools, in the meantime, should be a temporary shelter, a temporary relocation site, while we will be aggressively already working out maybe on containers so that we can place it at South Road property that will eventually become a temporary huge shelter. Right. That is where we are. But talking about leadership here in the city of Cebu, I will give my political will. As I have said, I'll rather be in prison saving lives than in prison for corruption. I cannot agree to that. I have a 2-year-old boy and I have 2 kids, 37 and 36.
Yeah.
I cannot end my life being remembered having done nothing.
Yeah. yung mga nasa wishlist mo, Mayor, medyo mukhang these are big urban planning projects. Baka, I think we're looking at a long-term horizon here. But before we end, very quickly, Mayor, I wanted to get your thoughts on monkeypox, which is, of course, a concern right now. Just very quickly, how prepared are you guys in Cebu for any sort of for a potential spread of this new disease?
You know, Regine, we've had beautiful success stories on how we started in addressing the surge of COVID, and that was the entry of, I called him Secretary Roy Simato, and then Mel Feliciano with Jean Loretze. They are the so-called liberators. Then we had the vaccination, which I came in when my mayor, who was still living but medically concerned at that time, and I became the vaccination czar. Now we've been hit by Odette, and now we have this challenge of monkeypox. So with the continuing COVID, but I am optimistic to report we've gone far. You know, with Secretary Mike Dino before, we've always been having as one Cebu Island. And right now, if you would wish, I can give you the statistics. Actually, the statistics right now, we only have 31.78% utilization rate sa public, 17.81 sa private. But we're talking about asymptomatic. No? When you talk about asymptomatic, kagaya ko, but I'm now negative but asymptomatic before at PCR, we're now hitting, that shall we say, you're talking about how many are in the hospital, very minimal. The one very minimal. And the one that is more or less, more of, you're looking at it in the isolation and other facilities, it is getting much unsubstantial percentage.
Right.
But one thing good, because last February, this year, I declared freedom with shared responsibility. Then, kaya uso na yung Wuhan. So, I'm happy to report to you finally that we've been able to have 93.44% second dose. And definitely, we're going to be hitting, because our booster registered is 142,000, vaccinated is only 127. And then the school, I am on top of this. Today, I will have a Zoom so that meron kaming balik eskwela.
Right.
So
as far as COVID-19 is concerned, you guys are well ahead. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and insights this morning.
Thank you. We will be doing and be praying also for monkeypox. And we have that done, and we will all be working together. Together, we can make great things happen. In God we trust. Salamat po.
Thank you, Cebu City Mayor and League of Cities President Michael Rama. And that has been today's agenda. Keep it here on Cignal TV channels 8 and 250 for the latest news. Again, I'm Regina Lay. We are One News, all sides, all the time.